Sir, I need to move.
Fucking house nigga working for the fucking KKK.
What the fuck's wrong with you people?
Why are you calling a woman a man?
Sir,
I mean, what kind of a guy does that?
Fucking house nigga.
That video didn't shock me. It confirmed something. Leftist protesters screaming a racial slur at an ICE agent wasn't a momentary lapse or an outlier. It was muscle memory. Because the left's relationship with racism isn't accidental. It's historical, ideological, and very, very well documented. Start at the Civil War, Democrats were the party of slavery. When they lost, they didn't have a moral awakening. They regrouped. The Ku Klux Klan didn't emerge from nowhere. It was founded by Democrats to terrorize Black Americans and suppress Republican votes. That wasn't fringe extremism. That was political enforcement. Then came the Daughters of the Confederacy, whose real mission wasn't remembrance, but revision. They put up Confederate statues decades after the war, not to honor history, but to rewrite it, to shift the argument away from slave labor versus free and paid labor, and sell a myth of noble rebellion. A century later, today's leftists tore down those statues in the streets, never realizing they were destroying propaganda created by their own ideological Democrat ancestors. Manifest Destiny followed the same playbook, government doctrine used to justify displacement, broken treaties, and the destruction of Native communities. Then Jim Crow, not culture drift, law, written, passed, and enforced by Democrats. Poll taxes, literacy tests, segregation by statute. The Tuskegee experiments wasn't a misunderstanding either. It was the federal government deliberately letting Black men die untreated for decades from malaria and gonorrhea that they injected into them while lying to them. Japanese internment camps weren't a conservative invention. They were signed into law by a Democrat president, locking American citizens behind barbed wire based solely on ancestry. Civil rights didn't pass because Democrats suddenly found a conscience. They fought it. Strom Thurmond filibustered it. George Wallace stood in the schoolhouse doors. Robert Byrd, an actual KKK recruiter and grand wizard, rose to the highest levels of Democratic leadership. Barack Obama eulogized him. Joe Biden spoke at his funeral and praised him, if he can remember. And Bill Clinton attended and publicly honored him. This isn't ancient history. This is living memory. Now comes the fairy tale of the so-called party switch. If that switch was real and immediate, explain this. The South did not begin voting Republican for president until roughly 20 years after civil rights legislation passed. 2 full decades. If Republicans suddenly became the racists in the 1960s, why did Southern states keep voting Democrat through the 70s and 80s? And answer the real question carefully, because your narrative depends on it. Is the South more racist today or less racist than it was in the 1960s? If you admit it's less racist now, you're admitting racism declined after the South shifted Republican. If you claim it's more racist today, you're lying to keep a story alive. Either way, it's a self-own. Then there's Lyndon Baines Johnson, The Great Society. It was sold as compassion, designed as leverage. Johnson privately bragged that welfare programs would keep people dependent and voting Democrat for generations, using the N-word to describe them. Not empowerment, dependency, not equality, control. Fast forward, crack cocaine penalties that devastated communities were Democrat policy. Now voter ID is called racist, which is just the same as an insult repackaged. Minorities are incapable and need supervision. That's not compassion, that's ownership. And here's the through line nobody wants to say out loud. This fight today isn't about compassion either. It's about labor, illegal labor, cheap labor. People working for near slave wages to do political bidding, to undercut American workers, and to be counted in the census to pad House seats and entrench power. That isn't progress. That's the 1800s all over again. The only difference now is branding, an illusion that the bad guys are suddenly the good guys. White hats instead of white hoods. Same exploitation, same math, same contempt for human dignity wrapped in moral theater. So when a leftist screams a racial slur at an ICE agent, don't act surprised. That's not hypocrisy, that's continuity. Different century, same old game. Thanks for watching.
Drop it hard.